Questions and answers. Well, we got questions and answers for God all day long, but what about now? What's the question now? Well, how do I overcome stress at work? I mean, come on, stress at work? Could that actually happen? Yeah, it can. Quite often. A lot. In other words, just about everybody has some kind of stress, and it's usually at work. Let's find out what God says. Well, scriptures help manage work stress by encouraging you to shift your focus from overwhelming tasks to trusting God. Scriptures provide a mental and spiritual reset, if you will, to surrender your burdens, anxiety, alleviate, and regain perspective. So here's what you need to do. When you feel overwhelmed or overworked, then you turn to Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 through 30. Now, here's what it says. Jesus invites you to lay down heavy burdens and promises rest for your soul. And you can do this during a break, if you have such a thing, to pause, breathe, and mentally hand off your to-do list to God. In other words, give it to Him. And here it is, Matthew chapter 11, Jesus speaking here, 3 verses. He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary, loaded down with burdens, and I'll give you rest. Place my yoke on you and learn from me, because I am gentle and humble, and you will find rest for your souls. Because my yoke is pleasant, burden is light." In other words, at work, when somebody's crawling down your throat and a boss is being a difficult person, or a coworker is being more than a difficult person, that's when we need to find a place, if not in the bathroom for a couple of minutes, find a place to hand off to God your to-do list. Let Him worry about it. Grateful, with a grateful heart. Continue with a grateful heart. You see, when dealing with anxiety or a tough deadline, meditate on Philippians 4, verses 6 and 7. And basically, it commands you to not be anxious, but to pray with thanksgiving, promising a peace that surpasses all understanding. Now, use this as, if you will, as a quick, silent prayer at your desk before starting a high-pressure task. And some of you, that high-pressure task starts when you clock in, and it doesn't end until you clock out. Tough day. God is there with you. With gratitude, that has to fill your heart. Be thankful. Well, here it is, Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 and 7. He says this, he said, "Never worry about anything. Instead, in every situation, let your petitions be made known to God through prayer and request with thanksgiving. And God's peace, which goes far beyond anything we can imagine, will guard your hearts and minds in union with the Messiah Jesus." I remember as a young man, it was a job I was given to do. I didn't like it. I hated it. I despised it. I did not like it at all. I thought, is there any way for me not to do this? And I remember just 19 years old, I had my little pocket New Testament with me, and I'd go off in the break room and I'd read Philippians. He says, "Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned that whatsoever state I am in, therewith to be content." Now, Paul knew what that meant. Oh my goodness, I had to read that over and over and over to realize that it could be a whole lot worse than what it is. And today, every time I read Philippians, every time I come across that passage, a smile hits my face, because that which was so difficult to do and so much that I hated at that time, it now brings a smile to my face, because I knew eventually God would take me from that and put me somewhere else. And yes, He did. But we are, with gratitude, to be thankful, because guess what? There's lots of people laying in hospital beds. They don't have a whole lot to be thankful for, because they will never go home. Some of them are children. So when facing an unmanageable workload, yeah, you know what that is. Recall Philippians 1, verse 6, which reminds you that God finishes what He starts and works in the big picture. It's an excellent reminder to focus on doing your best today and trusting God with a long-term trajectory of your career. Philippians 1 and 6, "I am convinced of this, that the one who began a good action among you will bring it to completion by the day of the Messiah Jesus." So when dealing with a self-doubt, feeling stuck, yeah, Proverbs 3 verses 5 and 6. And if you've followed me in any one of these sessions, you realize this is a good one. It reminds you to trust in him rather than leaning on your own understanding. Acknowledge him, and yeah, he's going to direct your path. And here it is. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. See, when facing difficult coworkers or workplace tension, would that happen in America? Yeah, seemingly every single. There's always somebody there that's making it difficult for everybody to do their job. Well, we can combat that by reading Proverbs 12 and 25, and many of these you're just going to have to memorize, which notes that anxiety weighs you down, but a good word makes a heart glad. You can use this in an actionable push to deliberately encourage a struggling colleague, shifting the negative atmosphere. A person's anxiety weighs down his heart, but an appropriate word is encouraging. So if you don't get an encouraging word from someone else, at least give one. In other words, be thankful, be grateful, because once again, you've got a lot to be thankful for. You have a lot to be thankful for. I trust that's helped you. We'll see you on the next study.